I just finished watching Toy Story 5, and you should believe the hype. That is a fantastic movie. I'm not at all surprised by the box office numbers for this movie because it is doing buku bonkers money at the box office, and having just saw it today, I can totally understand why. So let's talk about it. What's up, family? It's your boy Strez here, and if you're new here, I am one of the many people on the internet that likes to talk about movies, TV shows, react to trailers, those types of things. So if that's something that you're interested in, click the subscribe button, I guess. You don't have to. Watching is for free, but also clicking subscribe is for free. So Toy Story 5 was obviously a movie that I was like barely excited for because let's face it, it's the fifth one. Like I remember every time I see a movie series or a movie franchise decide that they're going to continue making movies past 4, I usually am like, okay, let's pump the brakes a little bit. Obviously, Star Wars is definitely an exception here because that gets to have as many movies as it wants because it's Star Wars. They're the best. It's my all-time favorite movie franchise. That being said, I was not looking very much forward to watching Toy Story 5. I told myself I was going to go watch it regardless, and just going into it kind of knowing like, okay, we're aging out of this. You know, I'm in my 30s now. But then after watching this movie, I'm reminded over and over again that Toy Story has always been for the millennial generation specifically. And I know there's probably people from Gen Z watching this. There's probably some people from Gen X watching this. And I mean, I have no idea if boomers get on the internet anymore. Well, they do get on the internet, but they post weird stuff on Facebook. So it's like not whatever. But the Toy Story franchise has always felt like it was always meant for my generation, the millennial generation. And the reason why I say that is because Toy Story 1, Toy Story 2 both took place when my generation were kids, when I was a child, when my people, the millennials, were children. And then Toy Story 3 takes place around roughly the same time that all of us are going off to college or having finished college and are moving on into a new phase of our life. And it kind of followed on beyond that to a really obvious point in Toy Story 5. And so I wanted to talk about some of the pros, some of the cons, the message that I believe that this movie is trying to convey, and then give you my final ranking at the very end. So let's get into some of the pros for Toy Story 5. And the first one that I had to mention, literally from the very first frame onward, the animation in this movie is so freaking good, dude. I was genuinely shocked by how good this film looks, because it's an animated movie, but it looks so good. It's like a next generation of animation, and it blew me away from, like I said, the very first frame on. It was so well done. Shout out to Pixar. You guys just continue to impress me all the time. You've never not impressed me over and over again. There probably have been times. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but that's neither here nor there. I went into this movie and I was like, okay, it's going to look like Toy Story. And it does look like Toy Story, but there is so much extra attention to detail in this movie. I remember at one point, Jessie had her cowgirl hat off, and it's an up close like shot of like Jessie's face, and you can see her hair and the way that the yarn is tied. And you can even see like tiny little frizziness in the yarn or whatever the material is that they use to make the hair on those kinds of dolls. You can literally see like a little frizziness sticking out. It was so spectacular. The reflection off of all the Buzz Lightyear's helmets, all of that kind of stuff. They paid extra attention to those minor details in this movie, and it really sticks out. And it's one of those things that's like, wow, this looks really, really good. I remember when like the movie started off, I looked over at my wife and I said, does this seem dark to you? And then it pans out and I see it's a time of day that it would make it dark. And from then on, the movie was like perfectly color graded, perfectly rendered. Like it was just nice to look at. And I think that there's a lot of movies out there that kind of fail in this category. And that is absolutely not the case for Toy Story 5, because again, it was potentially maybe the best animation that I have ever seen. I literally cannot think of a movie that has better animation than what I saw in Toy Story 5, because like it is next level, top tier. Like if this is the future of what animation looks like, the next generation of kids and people like me who love watching animated movies are in for a treat, because it looked that good. Another one of the pros was the way that they lean into the fact that, like, yeah, Toy Story is getting old. Like these stories are old. The character of Woody is old. The character of Buzz is old. The character of Jesse is old. And they really lean into that. Obviously, we get a chance to see a little bit of that in the trailer, with Woody. You know, he's losing some of the brown on the back of his head, so it's making him look like he's balding. And then also some of the stuffing's just not in the right place around his belly. And so it looks like, you know, he's got a little bit of a dad bod going on, which I thought was a nice touch. Like, it's fun. The kids think it's funny, like when they see him kind of like rubbing his belly. But then, you know, the parents that are there, the adults that are there in the room, they see that and they're like, I get it. I get it. It makes perfect sense. And that was another one of the pros. I thought they did a good job of leaning into, like, yeah, these characters are old. We're going to make them feel old at the same time. And there was several jokes throughout the movie too, where they were like pointing out the fact that, like, these characters are old. Bonnie calls them antiques at one point, you know, so they really leaned into that. And I thought it was done in a kind of a tasteful way, and not really a way that's like putting it in the face of all of the millennial parents that were in the crowd that were watching in the audience. It wasn't putting it in their face saying like, hey, haha, look, you're old. That's funny. It was more along the lines of like, we get it. You guys are getting old. We are also, this is old. These stories are old. These characters are old. I thought they did a really good job with that. As far as the I mean, there are so many pros with this movie, because this movie is so good. I thought it was really cool how all of the Buzz Lightyears that were brought in from the beginning that were introduced, there was like, I don't know, 30, 40, maybe not that many, I don't know, Buzz Lightyears that were involved in the story in kind of like a tangential role. And then in the very end, they kind of actually become a part of the main storyline. They were obvious upgrades. I remember leaning over to my wife and saying like, I like the upgraded Buzz Lightyear. It looks pretty cool. Like, they had these little lights underneath their helmets, their chest lit up. And, you know, obviously there's going to be some spoilers in here, but like they are their own Wi-Fi hotspot. They're able to be drones and fly, which was just really cool. It was really cool. And there was a good callback to the very first Toy Story when the new generation Buzz Lightyears are carrying the original Buzz and Woody, and Buzz is like, now this is flying, and Woody says, with style, right? Like, that's a callback to the very original Toy Story, and I got a chuckle out of that. There were some good adult humor in this movie as well. You know, things that not necessarily the kids are going to pick up on, but the parents are definitely, or the adults in the room are definitely going to get a chance to chuckle at. I think my favorite one was the character that was used for the girl who Bonnie eventually meets. Her name is Blaze. She had these like early technology, early tablet type toys. And one was called Smarty Pants, and it was used for like toilet training. And at one point, his character says, well, flush me. I can't remember what he says after that. And I actually laughed out loud at that point, because I was like, I feel like that really goes over, you know, the kids' heads. Like, they hear the joke, you know, this thing that has poop on it, you know, it talks about going number one, going number two. It said, flush me. That's funny. But as an adult watching that, you're like, oh, obviously it was supposed to be a different F word, but because this is a kid's movie, they're going to use this specific F word. There were just other examples of that in this movie that I thought landed really well. They did a really good job. And I feel like Pixar has always done a good job of incorporating the adult humor in these movies that are sophisticated enough so that the children that are in the theater watching with their parents don't pick up on, but the adults in the room can actually pick up on those jokes. I think they've always done a good job of that. As far as cons are concerned in this movie, there are some things that I wonder if they would have done differently, if it would have been better payoff. But then I'm able to kind of sit and think, no, I don't necessarily think that they needed to do it that way. One of the things was um, Jessie was really struggling in this movie with like her purpose and, kind of reliving the past that she has experienced and kind of almost the trauma in a sense of her original kid growing up and putting her in a donation box and sending it off to be donated. And, she goes back to the very house that she originally lived in. And, there's something in me that thinks like maybe it would have been a really cool payoff to see Jessie's original kid grown up as a parent and like teaching her kid how to play with this Jessie toy. And then that maybe Jesse's original kid's new child could eventually become friends with Bonnie, but I feel like that time frame doesn't add up properly. So it makes sense that they didn't do that. I don't know. I feel like there could have been a different way that they could have approached the old house and everything. But I think that, the way that they did it very well, with, showing us what happened with Jesse's original kid and kind of where she landed in life and all of those types of things. So in reality, that's not really a con, but I feel like that was something that they could have done a little bit differently. I also thought that, and obviously this is, for a new generation of people, and they're giving it a chance for a new generation of the toys to kind of take the lead in this one. But I feel like there wasn't enough Woody and Buzz in this movie. And I feel like Woody and Buzz are such iconic characters that they almost miss out on being able to really lean in on utilizing those two. I mean, it's Tom Hanks and Tim Allen, for crying out loud. Like, come on. Like, I don't know. I feel like they could have been utilized more in this movie, because there's a scene where they're arguing back and forth over who's going to take the lead at one point, and I think it's Slinky or Mr. Potato Head says, like, it's good to see them fighting again. And in my brain, I'm like, yeah, I would have liked to see a lot more of that throughout this movie. Like, give me Woody, give me Buzz. Like, please, that would be so fantastic, because they were so great when I was a kid. Surely this new generation of kids can also enjoy Woody and Buzz. But the moments that they were used, there was good callbacks, not callbacks, but nostalgia in the scenes that they are in the movie together on screen at the exact same time. I think they did a good job of utilizing them when they did utilize them. I wish that they would have utilized them even more in this film. I guess another con for this movie is probably the film score itself. I don't think I just watched this movie 3 hours ago. I just walked out of the theater from watching this movie 3 hours ago, and 2 hours ago, but at the time of me recording this, and I don't remember the score. Like, I don't remember the film score, and film scores are one of the things that I really, really pay attention to in movies. I talk about it in my Supergirl review, which if you haven't watched that, go check that out after this film. I'll have it linked right up here for you guys to go check out. But that one, for different reasons, is something that I am going to remember, right? The score and the soundtrack. But in this movie, in Toy Story 5, it just didn't stick out to me. I don't know. Maybe it's because I was so locked into trying to catch the message of this movie in the first place that I didn't really pay much attention to how the score sounded altogether. But also, in the end, like, I feel like a lot of movies do a really good job with their film score that is like a memorable score. Like, it's memorable music that helps, like, the emotion of different scenes. It helps build different scenes. I feel like that wasn't necessarily the case for me in this movie. And it might be different for other people that go and watch this movie themselves. But for me, the score was not something that I walk away really remembering about this movie. And I just said, I just walked out of that theater like 2 hours ago before I sat down to record this, and the score just isn't sticking for any reason. Maybe if I watch it another time, I'll pay more attention to it, because maybe I just wasn't paying enough attention. But yeah, it didn't stick out to me. So I guess that would be another one of the cons. Like I said, there's not a lot of cons about this movie. I think that what makes this movie so good is the messages that are in the story. And I think that there are two major messages within this story, and one of them is through, well, I guess Jesse is involved in both of these messages. And I think the first one that I think is kind of not the main message that this movie is trying to tell us or show us is you never really know the kind of impact that you're going to leave on someone. And I think in the moment towards the end of the movie, in that final act of the movie, when Jesse finds kind of that time capsule that her original kid, what was her name? Emily, buried at the tire swing tree on the property where she was originally her first kid's toy. It shows there was a photo in there or there was a point on the tree where it's, carved out Jesse was here. And there is the time capsule that's put in there. And Jesse's like, these are not from when Emily was a kid. These are newer. And she's looking through it and she sees the photo of her original kid with her own child. And she ends up spoiler, I've already covered that, but she ends up naming her child Jesse. And I got very teary-eyed in that very moment because like you don't know the impact that you're leaving on people. Like you don't know the waves that you're leaving behind you as you're going through life and as you're living and helping people and talking to people and interacting with the world around you. You don't know the impact that you're leaving. And Jessie didn't know the impact that she left, but it was obviously a lasting impact, so much so that her Emily, her first kid, named her first child after her favorite toy. I think that's a fantastic example of telling us that we don't know the impact that we're going to leave behind when either we leave this earth or when we, leave the season or the current story or chapter that we're living out in our lives. I thought they did a really good job telling that message. And then the other message that they talk about in this one, and it's really kind of why I titled this what I did and why the thumbnail says what it says, is because like the adult in the room are the problem. That's the message that this movie is saying. And it's not saying it in necessarily those kinds of words, because obviously I am being a little bit more on the nose about that and in this story, but like you're the problem. And I say you as in like capital Y, you. I am included in this because as we're going into this movie and we watch the trailers for this movie, we are led to believe that the villain for this story is the tablet. The villain for this story is the technology, because let's face it, kids are always on their tablet. Kids are always on their parents' phones. They're always on a screen. Like even at school, kids are on screens all of the time. And I think it's easy for us to look at that and say, oh, that's the issue. That's why kids are the way they are today. That's why the next generation of children are growing up and they're having lapses in the ability to make friends. They're having lapses in their social IQ. They're having lapses in their emotional IQ. It's easy to blame the tablets. But in reality, it's not the tablet's fault, because a tablet is a neutral device. The fault and the onus is placed on the adult that is giving the tablet to their kid and letting it go unsupervised. Right? There's a point in this movie where Bonnie is being made fun of by friends who she thinks are her friends that she technically didn't make face to face. She made these friends through conversations on the tablet and then eventually had a sleepover. They were playing hide and seek. They got distracted by their tablets, ended up not ever going to find Bonnie. So that upset her. And then she's getting made fun of on this tablet by the friends that she thought were her friends that she made through the tablet. And her mom finally says, what happened? Can I see? And then she takes a look at it and then she's like, okay, let's take a break from the group chat. Let's go get some ice cream. And I'm like, if you would have been doing this before this moment ever got here, Bonnie would not be feeling this way. Bonnie would not be experiencing this thing. And I know it's easy for me to say as someone who doesn't have kids, someone who isn't raising a little human being, but I you don't know this, but I work in student ministry at my church. I volunteer with student ministry, specifically high school boys at the church that I attend and volunteer at. And I can tell you by secondhand observations that the unlimited and unfettered access that teenagers and kids are getting to these tablets and their phones is doing a disservice to them. I think the adults in the room need to do a better job of setting boundaries, setting screen time limits, and being more aware of what is going on with their kids on these tablets. And it's obviously different from when the millennials, the ones who are the parents taking their kids to see this movie, and the parents who are raising their kids with the tablets. It's different for when we were kids, because when we were kids, we were talking on the phone. You know, we were writing notes that could be easily confiscated and read, and phone conversations can be heard from our parents from another one of the landlines in the kitchen when we're talking on the phone in our bedrooms. They have an easier way of kind of seeing what's going on and understanding what is happening in their kids' lives. That's not the case when you just give a tablet to a kid and let them do whatever they want to do on the tablet. So when I say like you are the problem, I'm saying like the real villain of this story is not the tablet. It is Bonnie's parents not really knowing much about the lily pad and just letting Bonnie play with the lily pad as much as she wants to, and talking to her friends without ever having any conversations about this. And then telling Bonnie after it's too late, you realize you can come and talk to us about anything at any point. I think that's the main story that Toy Story 5 is trying to tell. That's the story that I think that Toy Story 5 is trying to tell us. The tablet's not the enemy. There needs to be something put in place, the boundaries put in place around the tablet so that your kids can have better social IQ. They can have better emotional IQ, that they can know how to talk to people in person and know how to make a friend in person. And in Toy Story 5, in Bonnie's case, still be able to play. Like, get off the iPad, go outside and have a wedding with Woody and Buzz Lightyear and Rex and Slinky and Bo Peep and Jesse, you know, and Forky. Go play. Use your imagination. Develop outside of just using a tablet. But at the same time, the tablet is also used to help Bonnie find a real friend, right? So it's showing that it's not about what the tablet is. It's about how the tablet is used. And that feels like that's the main message of this story. And I could be completely off base with this. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about my take on what Toy Story 5 is trying to tell us. But altogether, I really enjoyed this movie. I thought that this was probably the best movie that I've gone to theaters to see this year, which this was the fourth movie that I've seen in theaters. Star Wars, Masters of the Universe, Supergirl. Yeah, this was the fourth movie that I've seen in theaters. And it was the best one that I've seen so far on the big screen at the theaters. And so I think my overall rating for this movie, out of 10, I think that this movie gets an 8.3 out of 10. It was a great movie, right? And obviously you're probably like, if you liked it that much, why aren't you giving it a 9? Why aren't you giving it a 10? Well, I think 9s and 10s are reserved for movies that are almost without flaw, movies that are perfect. And obviously this is my rating. I'm not saying that this is what this movie actually is objectively. Like, subjectively in the Strez score, this is getting an 8.3 out of 10. Let me know what you guys think about Toy Story 5 in the comment section below. And like I said at the very beginning, click the subscribe button. It's completely free. And it actually, I would actually really appreciate it. We're slowly growing on this channel, which has been really fun. So I would love to continue to grow so that I can get more of these videos out to you as the summer goes on, because we've got a lot coming out. We've got Moana coming out. We've got Minions and Monsters. I probably will go see that. And then we've also got Spider-Man at the end of July. So the Odyssey comes out too soon. There's a lot coming out this summer. So be sure to subscribe so you can catch all of those videos as they come out. And I will catch you all in the next one. Enjoy your dinner.